Hey guys, welcome back to what, like part 12 of making the e63 perfect. Anyway, we're moving on to the cosmetics, specifically the paint. We're going to do a full paint correction ceramic coat, but first we need to address the bumper, specifically the holes this dealer drilled into it. So the goal of this video is, can we fix these holes to an acceptable level, or if we can't, it's going to need a full respray. And I kind of want to keep the original paints. So anyway, let's get started. Now you definitely don't have to take the bumper off. I'm going to be replacing this guy, because you can see this is a little bit deformed here from too many curbs. Already got a brand new Mercedes one sitting over here on the table. And then also, while I have the bumper off, I'm gonna go ahead and just clean up the radiators, clean up everything, and we're gonna go ahead and start on correcting the bumper paint too. So the thing you need to take off this guy to get the bumper off. I'm gonna go ahead and take off all of them because I'm gonna go ahead and clean everything in here. To do this, it's just a 10 millimeter and a couple just snaps here and there. Now with them all removed, it should just come right out. All right, so up here at the top, I can see our two bolts that hold the main part of the bumper on. They're T30. On the passenger side. So we're going to go and undo this plug. Anytime you see these gray things, they have to be backed out first. Just pushed in this hole and it released. Now this piece just kind of pulls right out. Two more bolts here on the bottom, one on the other side here and here, that have to be removed, and then you're done on the bottom. And the very last thing is right here near the front is your outside air temperature sensor. Now if you look up here on top, there's a lot of bolts. The only one you got to remove is this one down here. There's the 10 millimeter here, and then there's 3 Torx across here, and of course that 10 millimeter down here. Anytime you're working with these flimsy bumpers, it's just to protect it, because they're going to flop around when you try to take them off and install them. You just don't want it scratching up your paint. Nothing is holding the bumper on except for it's just kind of setting on the top. So fully support it. It's going to weigh, I don't know, probably weighs 40 pounds. That's it. You can see this is why I kind of wanted to take the bumper off. We got all kinds of leaves and rocks and bugs all up in the radiator. So we're going to go through and clean all of this so everything is super clean up here. All right, so the goal is to make these disappear. So obviously they are raised. Can't do anything about that. So we're going to get a razor blade and we're going to trim off the raised part extremely carefully. Okay, perfect. All right, so to be honest, I lost some footage here, so I'll fill you in with what I did. You need something to fill the holes. You can use, I like the glazing putty because it's the easiest to sanding of all filling products. Bondo will work too, fiberglass will work. So now after that set up for a little bit, sands really easily. So we can just gently go over the area and pick up all the excess stuff that was gone with just 1000 grit. Now I'm pressing extremely lightly and trying to sand very evenly. Now to seal off the glazing compound, I just have the tiniest bit of primer. We're just going to paint on there, and then we're going to sand it one more time, and then we'll put the touch-up paint on there. It's been a few hours, the primer is dry, so now we're just going to make sure the primer is smooth. My goal right now is just to make it so if you close your eyes, you can't feel it at all. Now we are a bit at the mercy of what kind of touch-up paint it is. I mean, you're only as good as the paint. This is actually the Mercedes kit. Anyway, hopefully it'll be close to what we're looking for. All right, so that is one coat of touch-up paint and then sanded. You can see that it goes on kind of thin, so I sanded through one part. So we're going to put on one more coat, sand it, and then buff it. Now we'll just do one final sand and then hit it with a buffer, and we'll get kind of our final result. All right, so we've got the holes filled, paint's dried and everything. It's been sanded. The thing we're doing now is I'm going to go ahead and start my paint correction on the bumper. And this has already been washed, but obviously washing doesn't get it all off. So the next thing I do is just go through and do a clay bar, and then we're going to buff it and put it back on. Well, here we go, guys. First pass with kind of a heavy cut on just a drill. As you can see, our touch-up paint is quite a bit darker than the paint, even though it's factory Mercedes paint and factory Mercedes touch-up paint. So over here, if you look at the paint, you can see all the little tiny rock chips that are on this. So what that means we're gonna have to do is pretty much the whole bumper is gonna need to be sanded down. So that's the next step here. All right, so I spent a couple hours on the bumper. It's just a tedious thing. You can go real quick with a rotary on the whole car and get the whole car done in a few hours. But the bumper is so tedious just because of all the angles. Either way, I didn't want to do too much sanding, but what I did is I did 1,000 grit pretty much everywhere, except for kind of close to the sensor. So there's still a little bit there, but you know, I couldn't get it perfect. Also, you know, this kind of stuff's just really, really hard to get to without like skimming paint off. So anyway, the main areas where there's the heaviest pitting is now pretty much perfect. I also went through and cleaned the grill. Anyway, before we put the bumper on, we got to do two more things. I'm going to go ahead and hit the headlights with a buffer. They don't really need it that bad, but might as well do it while the bumper's off. And then we're going to clean up all this crap down here. So anyway, let's get started on that. So if your headlights are really bad, you're going to have to sand them down. I'm just going to simply hit this one just with some buffer and some polish. So it's basically got 46,000 miles worth of just like giant leaves and twigs and tons of bugs. All right, the last thing I do, if you look at the grill, you kind of see this is the black grill's kind of turned gray in some areas just because it's bare plastic. Right here I have the old grill, lower grill, and the new lower grill. So you can see this one is like fresh black plastic, and this one's gray, even if it's all cleaned up. So what I'm gonna do, I was thinking about painting. I'm actually gonna use this Restore stuff. It works really good. It's actually what I used on the Jeep, on those black things. They were like white when I bought it. And this stuff like turns them permanently black. I'm gonna test it on this, and if it matches this, we'll do all the rest of the pieces, including the grill. Unlike Armor All, which comes off when you first wash this stuff, I put it on my Jeep a year ago and it's still black. The way I found this was like on the Chevy Avalanche forums. I figure if somebody's figured out how to turn white plastic black again, it's gotta be those guys. But anyway, well, besides being time consuming, I think this is going to work perfectly. So I'm going to go ahead and finish up all these and do the grill, and then we're going to reinstall all these. So I did a real quick mist coat with just some aluminum colored paint, since those are aluminum. And then right here, after cleaning these up, I'm using a little bit of that CarWorks Restorer. All right, so now it is time to reassemble the bumper. It is crazy how many pieces are involved in this, and they all kind of just snap in. So first I'm going to put on is the side pieces. You can see that they are now black instead of just, you know, green or gray, I guess. So they just kind of snap into place on the edges. All right, so time has finally come to put this back on there. Just be careful again that you don't drag parts of your bumper onto unprotected surfaces. Whew. That was a lot of work. So anyway, now we're just going to tighten the bolts, and then we can do the adjustments later, and I'll just show you how to do that part. All right, so last thing we got to do is just make sure that the bumper is adjusted correctly with the gaps and everything. Sorry, it did start to rain here, so I'll just talk loud or dub this over. Anyway, you'll notice when you put these on, they might have clicked in too far or whatever. You really want them almost all the way out. There's two different adjustments. There's the forward back, and then there's the up and down. So this handles your forward and back on each side, and then there's a wheel here that you can literally turn with a screwdriver or even by finger to make the go up and down. So I'm going to leave it on the farthest out setting, so it's just barely clicked in. We're going to bring this down. First, make sure it doesn't hit anywhere. And then we're just going to close the hood. So what we want to do is, you can see there's a massive gap over here and pretty narrow over here. We want it to be perfectly even. Literally, you're supposed to put like a tool in there. It's like 2.5 millimeters or something like that. But you can kind of just judge it, because ultimately you just want it done so it looks good. So right now I'm looking at it and I got it pretty even. It might be just a little bit far out over here. So we'll do one more click. So now once you are happy with the forward back adjustment without pushing it anymore, it's time to install those two 10 millimeters we took out first. These are the ones that are deep down here. And that's just going to lock down the bumper and its forward back movement. So now we're going to work on height. So let's really carefully close the hood one more time. So our gap is still good. What I'm noticing here though is that this is lower than this, and over here it's pretty even. So we're going to leave this side alone. We're going to come up on this side. So now you can see that gear right here. Basically we can just spin that gear and watch it go up and down. So now that we got the forward, back, and the height all nailed in, we can just tighten all the bolts and we are done. All right, guys, the bumper is done. Remember, the goal of this was just to see if we could salvage the bumper without having to repaint the thing. And I'm overall very happy with the way it came out. Yes, the color of the touch-up paint is not correct. That is Mercedes touch-up paint, and it looks a little bit, it's definitely a lot darker. I am happy the way it came out smooth. If it was the right color, I think we could have made those disappear. But either way, that was project number one. Project number two was just the rock pitting that was everywhere on the front clip. We were able to get 90% of that out with wet sanding it. And then project three is we replaced this bottom piece right here with brand new plastic from Mercedes, and it made it very apparent that that was nice and black. These were very, very gray. These were very gray. So what I did is I used the restore and totally restored them, and now they look really good. And then we also cleaned out all of the leaves and debris and bugs out of the radiators or the heat exchangers, and kind of restored them a little bit. So overall, I'm very happy with the way this came out. I think we mission accomplished in getting it salvageable. So the next thing is we're going to move on to the rest of the paint. So this needs a paint correction, that needs a paint correction, and then both of them are going to get ceramic coated, and then we're going to be done with the outside. I do have black badges that I'm going to swap out on this one, but we're getting there, getting to the home stretch. Anyway, thanks for watching, guys, and stay tuned for the next video of the paint correction. And while it's not perfect, you can't really see the holes in the front bumper anymore. Anything? All right, go ahead and, you know,